Athey kids and parents! This weekend in Athey Kids, we are continuing to read about the life of Joseph and how God uses evil for good. God was with Joseph even when life was full of trouble. Now Joseph had been brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, the captain of the guard, an Egyptian, had bought him from the Ishmaelites who had brought him down there. His master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord caused all that Joseph did to succeed in his hands. However, Joseph was accused of wrongdoing by Potiphar's wife. As soon as his master heard the words that his wife spoke to him, "This is the way your servant treated me," his anger was kindled, and Joseph's master took him and put him into prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined, and he was there in prison. But the Lord was with Joseph and showed him steadfast love and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison put Joseph in charge of all the prisoners who were in the prison. Sometime after this, the cupbearer of the king of Egypt and his baker committed an offense against their lord, the king of Egypt. And Pharaoh was angry with his two officers, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker, and he put them into custody in the house of the captain of the guard, in the prison where Joseph was confined. And one night they both dreamed, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt, each his own dream, and each dream with its own interpretation. Joseph correctly interpreted each of the dreams, and they came to pass just as he said. After 2 whole years, Pharaoh dreamed 2 very strange dreams. So in the morning his spirit was troubled, and he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt and all its wise men. Pharaoh told him his dreams, but there was none who could interpret them to Pharaoh. Then the chief cupbearer said to Pharaoh, "I remember my offenses today, when Pharaoh was angry with his servants and put me and the chief baker in the custody of the house of the captain of the guard. We dreamed on the same night, he and I, each having a dream with its own interpretation. A young Hebrew was there with us, a servant of the captain of the guard. When we told him, he interpreted our dreams to us, giving an interpretation to each man according to his dream. Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they quickly brought him out of the pit. Joseph interpreted the dreams to Pharaoh. It is as I told Pharaoh. God has shown Pharaoh what he is about to do. There will come 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt, but after them there will arise 7 years of famine, and all the plenty that will be forgotten in the land of Egypt. The famine will consume the land, and the plenty will be unknown in the land, by reason of the famine that will follow, for it will be very severe." Joseph advised Pharaoh with a plan to prepare for the severe famine ahead. This proposal pleased Pharaoh and all his servants, and Pharaoh said to his servants, "Can we find a man like this in whom is the Spirit of God?" Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Since God has shown you all this, there is none so discerning and wise as you are. You shall be over all my house, and all my people shall order themselves as you command. Only as regards to the throne will I be greater than you." When Jacob learned that there was grain for sale in Egypt, he said to his sons, "Why do you look at one another?" And he said, "Behold, I have heard that there is grain for sale in Egypt. Go down and buy grain for us there, that we may live and not die." So 10 of Joseph's brothers went down to buy grain in Egypt. Joseph recognized his brothers, but they did not recognize him when they came to buy grain. Joseph decided to put his brothers to the test to see if they had changed. And Joseph gave orders to fill their bags with grain, and to replace every man's money in his sack, and to give them provisions for the journey. This was done for them. Then they loaded their donkeys, and with their grain departed. And as one of them opened his sack to give his donkey fodder at the lodging place, he saw his money in the mouth of his sack. And he said to his brothers, "My money has been put back. Here it is in the mouth of my sack." At this their hearts failed them, and they returned and trembled to one another, saying, "What is this that God has done to us?" When the brothers returned to Egypt for more grain, they brought back the extra money with them, and their brother Benjamin too. Joseph gave a great feast for them, and they sat before him, the firstborn according to his birthright, and the youngest according to his youth. And the men looked at one another in amazement. Portions were taken to them from Joseph's table, but Benjamin's portion was 5 times as much as any of theirs. And they drank, and they were merry with him. Joseph again tested his brothers by having put his own silver cup in Benjamin's grain sack when his brothers were leaving to return home. When Judah and his brothers came to Joseph's house, he was still there. They fell before him to the ground. And Judah said, "What shall we say to my lord? What shall we speak? Or how can we clear ourselves? God has found out the guilt of your servants. Behold, we are my Lord's servants, both we and he also, in whose hand the cup has been found." When Joseph wanted only Benjamin to remain as prisoner, Judah pleaded, "Now therefore, please let your servant remain instead of the boy, as a servant to my Lord, and let the boy go back with his brothers." Then Joseph could not control himself before all those who stood by, and he cried, "Make everyone go out from me." So no one stayed with him, where Joseph made himself known to his brothers. So Joseph said to his brothers, "Come near to me, please." And they came near. And he said to them, "I am your brother Joseph, whom you sold into Egypt. And now do not be distressed or angry with yourselves because you sold me here. For God sent me before you to preserve life. And God sent me before you to preserve you for a remnant on the earth, and to keep alive for you many survivors. So it was not you who sent me here, but God. He has made me a father to Pharaoh, and lord of his house, and ruler over the land of Egypt. Hurry and go up to my father and say to him, 'Thus says your son Joseph, God has made me lord of all Egypt. Come down to me, do not tarry.'" Then Jacob set out from Beersheba. The sons of Israel carried Jacob their father, and their little ones and their wives in their wagons that Pharaoh had sent to carry him. They also took their livestock and their goods, and came into Egypt, Jacob and all his offspring with him, his sons and his sons' sons with him, his daughters and his sons' daughters. All his offspring he brought with him into Egypt. Then Joseph prepared his chariot and went up to meet Israel his father in Goshen. He presented himself to him and fell on his neck, and wept on his neck a good while. Israel said to Joseph, "Now let me die, since I have seen your face and know that you are still alive." After 13 years of bondage, God established Joseph as second in command over all of Egypt. Through Joseph, God brought repentance and peace to his family. And through Joseph, God saved them from starving and gave them a place to grow into a nation. As a result, God preserved the line of the Messiah, turning all the evil Joseph endured into a blessing for the entire world. The teaching points will vary slightly from classroom to classroom, but the main points will be: God is with us in hard times. God reconciles brokenness. God's providence deserves a trusting response. This weekend, we want to drive home how similar Joseph and Jesus are. God preserved the line of the Messiah through Joseph. Just as God saved his people through the suffering of one man, Joseph, so now God is saving his people through the suffering of one man, Jesus Christ. Just as Joseph became ruler to provide life to his brothers, so Jesus is exalted as king to provide life for those who become his brothers by faith. Our prayer is that you put your faith in King Jesus today. God bless. Bye.